Today we will be walking through the new subaward process in Workday and CIS. What we'll accomplish in this session is you'll learn what is not changing and what is changing within CIS and Workday for subawards. We'll provide contact info for follow-up questions and FAQs. We'll share a website link for short training videos and show you different scenarios and tasks, and then we'll provide information around additional resources available to you. So what's not changing? Requests for new subawards and mods of subawards will still be submitted through CIS. Supporting documentation for subaward requests, such as the budget, the memo of selection, statement of work, those are still required prior to submitting a request. Additionally, any compliance steps prior to submitting a sub-agreement are still required. So if you have any human subjects, export control, animal research, COI, all of those requirements are still required before submitting your sub-agreement. So what is changing? The chart of accounts is being converted into the foundational data model, or the FDM. Within the FDM, the project number is now being converted to a driver work tag, which includes a grant number for sponsored projects, a gift number for foundation-based projects, project for capital project, GTRI charge code for any GTRI speed types. A sponsored fund number is being converted to an award ID. Vendor is being converted to a supplier. An expense account code is being converted to a spend category. Contracts are being stored as supplier contracts within Workday. And then encumbrance is being stored as obligations. So as far as process changes goes, OSP will now be entering the purchase order within Workday. So previously, departments would request a PO from BuzzMart. That step is going away, and OSP will now be creating the purchase order based off of the requests that departments submit in CIS. PIs are now need to approve subaward invoices within Workday. Delegation is no longer allowed. What that means is whoever is assigned to the PD role within the driver work tag, which is the grant number or the charge code, needs to be the PI that is approving the invoices. So if you have a co-PD that approves your invoices, we need to make sure that that PI is associated to the PI role on the grant. OSP will be updating their billing instructions to notify subawardees they must include a driver work tag and PO number on each invoice they submit to OSP. The reason for that is the driver work tag and the PO number are required for OSP to just create an invoice in Workday. No waiting on procurement, the new process is a much more streamlined process for POs. And then lastly, we'll have one purchase order for the life of a sub-agreement. So previously we had to recreate purchase orders every 2 years. That task is going away. So now we'll have one sub-agreement for one purchase order for the life of that sub. So within CIS, a driver work tag is now required when submitting a new sub-agreement. If you don't know your driver work tag, you can contact, for GTRI users, you can contact SPS or Sponsored Project Support. For non-GTRI users, you can check the Sabre report within Workday. Subawardees in CIS are now being populated from Workday's database. So previously we had subawardees being maintained within CIS. We're now pulling every Workday supplier into CIS. Which allows for the subawardee that's on our sub-agreement to match the supplier that's on our POs and invoices. For POs with multiple lines, PIs must work with their grant manager to identify all PO lines. And we added an additional Excel file within the CIS sub-agreement request to download so you can populate exactly how you want your PO set up. So if you have 3 lines on your PO with one for labor, one for M&S, one for travel, you can separate those based on the charge code and document those within that Excel file in the CIS sub-agreement request. OSP will then use that file to set up the PO accordingly. The legacy process. So as I mentioned before, the legacy process has two tasks for the department to do in parallel. They'll need to submit the sub-agreement request in CIS, and then they'll also need to submit a PO request within BuzzMart. The PO request then goes into procurement's queue, and procurement would then validate if a sub-agreement contract has been executed. So they have to wait for that contract to be executed in order to execute the PO. The new process is a more streamlined approach where the department will submit the sub-agreement request in CIS. It'll then funnel into OSP to negotiate the terms and conditions with the subawardee. They will send a contract to the subawardee, who will then sign it, and then they'll send it back to OSP. And then that's when OSP will go into Workday and input the PO information. Once the PO has been entered and submitted in Workday, departments will be notified to approve within Workday to make sure that the PO has been set up correctly as per their requirements. And then after the department approves the PO in Workday, OSP will apply the PO number on their subcontract and then send it back to the subawardee, and they'll go ahead and execute the PO and the subagreement at the same time. For FAQs, questions, and overall support, please visit services.gatech.edu or ServiceNow. To view other subaward training videos, please visit OSP's website, osp.gatech.edu. And to view any other training regarding the Workday transformation, please visit transformation.gatech.edu.